you guys, it's me Crystal. So today I thought it would be fun to do the unpopular opinions book tag. So I will link the video I watched from Murphy Napier's channel below, and I will also link the original tag video and questions below in case you wanted to partake in the tag as well. So there are 9 questions and let's get started. So the first question is a popular book or series that you didn't like. And so, I mean, I feel like this would require me to read more popular books and series than I read, so I don't think I have a ton to choose from, but I'm going to go with November 9 by Colleen Hoover. And like, the only genre I dislike more than contemporary romance is just plain white contemporary. So already I was kind of setting myself up to be upset. But the reason why I wanted to read it is because I was in the mood to like read something different and outside of like my normal genre of choice. And so I did purposely go and find like a highly rated, really popular contemporary romance book to see if I can find a contemporary romance book that I would like. And obviously, that did not happen because I did not like this book. And I mainly dislike this book for the same reason I don't like romantic comedies and I don't like contemporary romance in the first place, and that is the relationship drama. And I get it, like if you're reading contemporary romance, it's probably for the relationship drama, and oftentimes there is no other kind of drama to be had, but that's like my least favorite kind of drama. And also, I just didn't like the way it was handled in this book. Like, I think that yes, she did have a legitimate reason to be mad at this guy, but I'm kind of like, if you're going to be nosy, then go all the way nosy. Don't be half nosy and then go home and whine for a year. And I didn't like that, okay? It just made me upset, and I finished the book and I was really upset. Not like, I didn't like hate it. I still gave it 3 stars because I did really like the book up until that point, but it's like that fight ruined the entire book for me. So yeah. The second question is a popular book or series that everyone else seems to hate but you love. Again, I don't have a ton of things to choose from. Most of the popular books and series that I like, a bunch of people also like, and I would say even that the majority of people like. Like, I know a lot of people don't like Twilight, but I think there are far more people who do like Twilight. So I don't want to sit here for like 10 minutes and rack my brain and try to think of something. But I also don't want to not answer the question. So I am going to give you a very unpopular book that I like that apparently no one else liked because not that many people have read it and the reviews are not glowing and the series got canceled. And that is The Poison Diaries by Mary Rose Wood in partnership with the Duchess of Northumberland. And she's the Duchess of Angwick Castle in Scotland, and she has this poison garden. I did really like the first book. Like, it's very slow paced, it's very boring, but I thought it was beautiful. I thought the writing was beautiful. I cared about the main character. I do kind of feel like it goes a little off the rails, especially in book 2. I also did like the second book, but it was like a completely different book. And then with the way that book ended, I'm like, how do you even have a third book? I actually wrote an ending for that book, like how I thought was like what I thought was the most logical conclusion based on how the books were going. And I feel like that book could have been wrapped up in even one more chapter or an epilogue. I still liked it, but it is left a little unresolved. But what I wrote in the book, I felt like that resolved the story for me, so I'm happy. But I can see like why the books are not popular. Alright, question 3. A love triangle where the main character ended up with the person you did not want them to end up with. Warn people for spoilers. Are an OTP that you don't like. Okay, so I had to look up OTP. So, one true pairing. This is hard for me because I feel like most of the time when there's a love triangle, they pick the person I didn't want them to pick. But I don't know. Like, I don't read a lot of books with love triangles in them, and usually I'm just like whatever. But I guess to answer the question, I would say, okay, I'm gonna go with Hunger Games. And I feel like Hunger Games is popular enough so maybe a spoiler warning isn't necessary, but I will hold up 4 fingers when I get to the next question in case you haven't read Hunger Games. But like, I feel like I loved PETA, okay? Like, I loved Peeta so much. If he had died, I would have been extremely, extremely upset. But like, I wanted her to end up with Gel. I loved Gal, and Gal loved Katniss, so I wanted Gal and Katniss to end up together because I wanted him to be happy, even though he could totally do better and he would be happier with someone else. I still wanted them to be together, and I was really, really upset with the way that was handled in the books. But at the same time, I'm okay with her ending up with Peeta. I just don't like the way the author treated Gale, like trying to make it seem like he was a bad guy when Gale is freaking perfect and Katniss does not deserve him. And I'm like, also, that is not his fault, okay? Like, that explosion was not his fault. That was genius, and it was just used in a bad way, and that is not his fault. And I just felt like the author was trying to make it look like Gale was somehow like not perfect because he created this like really awesome smart weapon that was used in a very bad way. And I'm like, look, if you want her to end up with Peeta, just have her end up with Peeta. You don't have to drag Gale through the mud. So I just didn't like that. I didn't like that, and I'm still not happy about that. Question 4. A popular book genre that you hardly reach for. Contemporary romance. I don't reach for a lot of high fantasy either, but I am starting to read more high fantasy, and that's because when I read The Language of Thorns by Leigh Bardugo, I realized that high fantasy could be done in a way that I was not lost and I was not confused, and that I could very quickly get invested in the story as well. So, I mean, these were short stories, but still, like, for you to have a high fantasy short story and I'm like not lost or confused and I love it, like, so I'm starting to read more high fantasy, but right now it's not something that I'm reaching for very often, but that could change. But definitely contemporary romance. I do not pick up contemporary romance very often. Question 5. A popular or beloved character that you do not like. I don't like Katniss. And I feel like most people like Katniss. I don't like Katniss. And I'm hoping that this opinion will change because I do want to reread The Hunger Games. Like, you know, in the near future, like within the next year. But I could not stand Katniss, and it got worse with every single book. I thought she was boring. I thought she was a brat, and part of it was because, like, I was going through some emotional problems at the time I read Mockingjay, and I wanted Katniss to be strong for me so that I can see that somebody could struggle and, like, get better, and I just feel like she never got better. I just really hated her by the end. And I was just like, she could just die right now for all I care, and I would be totally fine with it. But maybe I'll like her more when I reread the books, because it's been a while. It's been quite a while. Okay, question 6. A popular author that you can't seem to get into. J. Krystal. I feel bad because, like, I read this anthology called Slasher Girls and Monster Boys, and he had a short story in that book that I was just like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. It's so good. It's amazing. And so then I was even more excited to read Nevernight. But I wouldn't say, yeah, it says that you can't seem to get into. Yeah, I don't dislike him. I just don't seem to be interested in anything that he writes. Question 7. A popular book trope that you're tired of seeing. Examples are lost princess, corrupt ruler, love triangles, etc. I don't love love triangles. I've seen love triangles done well, and done so well that I actually would have been fine either way. And I do want to mention this book because I thought the book was really, really good, and it was Some Quiet Place by Kelsey Sutton, and that has a love triangle in it that I was like, not only is this not bothering me, but I am okay either way. Because I was like, I feel like if the character turned out to be, you know, this way, she would end up with this person. If she turned out to be that way, she would end up with that person. And as long as that happened, which it did, I was totally okay with that. And I loved that book. It was fantastic. But yeah, a popular book trope that you're tired of seeing. I don't feel like I see like a ton of tropes, at least not a ton of tropes that I don't like. I mean, I will say I'm not a fan of the, oh, I'm just a plain, humble, you know, like plain girl and she turns out to be gorgeous. Like, I don't like that. Is that a trope? What is that called? Like when someone's like, she just feels like she's just plain and ugly, but it's very clear from the way people treat her that she's gorgeous. I don't like that. I'm like, you know what you look like. Stop, stop doing that. I don't know what that's called. Anyway, question 8, a popular series that you have no interest in reading. Again, I don't want to bring up Jay Kristoff again, but I did try to read Nevernight. Like, the writing style wasn't for me. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't really care after, struggling, to get through the first few chapters of that book. I did not like those footnotes. So I know, like, I hear so many great things about that book, which, again, is why I picked it up in the first place. But I know I'm not really interested in trying again. And I'm like, it's okay. I'll just miss out. It's fine. It's fine. I am sure there are other popular series that I'm also not interested in, but that's the first one that comes to mind. I'm also not interested in reading Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Just because, I don't know. I read this review and I thought it was hilarious, but it's also one of the reasons I don't want to pick up the book. And that's because she said the main character was so perfect. He's perfect and he's gorgeous and he's athletic and he's good at everything, And I'm like, that I can see how that would be annoying. I'm not really interested in picking that up either. Okay, question 9 is, the saying goes, the book is always better than the movie, but what movie or TV show adaptation do you prefer more than the book? I do feel like this is going to be unpopular for anyone who is familiar with what I'm about to say. Also, spoiler alert. Okay, I don't know how bad of a spoiler alert, but, I will try to warn you if I feel like I'm getting spoilery though, but that's Horns by Joe Hill. Now, I will say the ending of the movie does not fit the tone of the movie or the book at all. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's kind of like bright and cheery and happy, and I'm like, did you even read the book? Like, that is not a good fitting. That is not a good ending for this story. Like, I was okay with it because I had watched the movie before I read the book. But then when I read the book, I was like, oh my gosh, the ending is perfect. Like, the tone and the feeling and the fieriness of the ending was perfect for the story. So I did like the way the very end of the book was handled, plus the book was able to wrap up some loose ends that the movie didn't wrap up. And so I did like the ending of the book better, but overall, I liked the way the movie adapted the story better than the book, and here's why. Okay, so if you read the book, if you don't know what Horns is about this guy. He wakes up one day and he's sprouting horns from his head, and every time he talks to someone, they start confessing all their sins to him. So he is currently kind of a person of interest in a murder case. So he was dating this girl and she breaks up with him, and then like that night she is raped and murdered because Joe Hill likes to rape people in his books. And read his books and you tell me that I'm wrong. Okay, but anyway, so we find out who the killer is at the halfway mark in the book. And I feel like even if I went to the book and I didn't know who the killer was, it would have been pretty obvious because, again, I love Joe Hill, but the bad guys are always so bad. They're so bad that not only do you know who the bad guy is, but you know how the story is going to end because it can only end one way because the bad guy is so disgusting and it would be unsatisfying otherwise, and it's just like, it was so obvious. And not only that, we spend half the book in the guy's head. And instead of it being like a guy who snapped or a guy who's complicated, no. He goes full-on sociopath, psychopath with the killer. And I'm like, does he have to be a psychopath? Like, does he have to be a full-blown sociopath? Like, can he not, like, just, like, be a regular dude who, like, snaps one day? Like, I just think that's more interesting than painting the guy, like, there's an animal that he murdered. They're just like, why? Why are you like this, Joe? Why are you like this? Anyway, I'm not gonna go on a rant about all of his books because that's not what this video is about. But you know, and I love that book, you know, but you spend the rest of the book going back and forth between the main character's point of view and the killer's point of view, that's taking place in the past up until the moment of, you know, the murder. And I will say Joe Hill handled that really well, because you wonder, you're like, oh, this is gonna bother me a lot. But I'm like, I feel like he handled it really well. And but anyway, the reason why I like the movie more is because it was not that obvious. Like, when I was watching the movie, like, everybody was a suspect. The main character was a suspect, you know, his brother, his friends, all his friends, the cops, everybody was a suspect, right? All the men, okay? And it's like, everybody was on my list, including the killer, but he was literally the last. I don't know if he was the last person on my list, but he was either the last person or the second to last person on my list. Because I'm like, this is how you play it. You have this guy, and I totally bought the narrative. And it was so good, because it was like, I didn't see it coming. And then I read the book, and I'm like, oh, well, obviously, you know? I don't know. I thought it was better. I thought the movie was better. I thought it was better. Excuse me. Okay, so those are all the questions for this prompt. And yes, let me know if you are going to do this prompt, or if you have done this prompt. And I will see you guys in the next video. And yeah.